as I was saying, I'm sorry, I'm the principal at MLK, and we are a preschool through 8th grade building. Our preschool has just transitioned to all-day preschool. And we have a combination of programs going on in our building. We are located off of Eastern and Wealthy, and I'll let you talk a little bit about Burton because I'm not completely familiar with all the pieces at Burton. And our population is 94% African American students, and the other 6% are Caucasian or Hispanic. So we have a little bit of diversity in our building. And we are also a KSSN site, which both ladies are going to speak a little bit more about that. But from my perspective, does anybody know what KSSN is? Nobody has a clue what KSSN is. So really the idea, I'm going to probably take part of your presentation, behind KSSN is it's supposed to be a one-stop shop for parents. So you have parents bringing kids to school. Being in an inner city setting, we have some barriers that we face every day with our children and with our families. The kind of programming we have at our building is Kara, who's in back, is our school community coordinator. She assists with counseling. We have a counselor that comes in a couple hours a week, and she does family counseling. She does individual counseling with students. We also have a DHS worker housed in our building, so when parents come in for their assistance to see their caseworker, they're right there in our presence. We also work on absenteeism, and we also work on tardiness of students, because in order for students to get a good education, they need to first be in school, and they need to be there on time. If you've ever been in a building, which I'm sure you're all in education classes, you have, one of the most critical times in a building is the first thing in the morning, where you're kicking off your morning with students, you're doing morning announcements, and immediately as students go to class, their reading time starts, because that's when kids are most alert, most with it. That's where you want to get in your intense instruction. So we face that barrier because a lot of our kids do come into school late. So Kara and my DHS worker, we work as a team together, and then there's some other people from my district that work with us on those pieces. So Kara also, and every KSSN worker, actually assists with parent functions. Unique to my building, I have very, very strong community partners. So I have an in-house tutoring center which is supported by one of my community partners, and they help coordinate that portion of it, and that tutoring goes on during the day. Working hand in hand with KSSN, we try to facilitate different things with all three of us working together constantly, because that's what helps to support students. And that's our ultimate goal, is to support students and to make sure that they're first getting a good education, and we're also supporting their needs outside of school and in school. So, you ready, Kara?
Have you noticed any
Yeah.
the differences you see in your building pre-KSSN to now?
For me, it's going to be a little bit different because I was the assistant at MLK last year, and this year I'm the principal, and prior to that I was a teacher, but I was teaching in a building that was not a KSSN site. So I find a lot of the things that I would go to Kara for, or some other KSSN people within my building, I always did as a teacher. Calling family outreach, calling, Network 180 to support my families with counseling and that stuff. I was doing that as an educator with having 31 students in my classroom. So it's another avenue to have someone support you as a teacher also. Kara comes to everything. She comes to family functions, she comes to conferences, she comes to staff meetings. So there's a close connection with teachers also, because she is a resource in our building, and she can support families in a way that, as a principal, that I may not have time to sit down with a parent for 2 hours and help them work through the process of, they may be losing their home, they may be, having issues with a car, something like that. Those are things where, I'll have that initial conversation with them, and then I make the decision and I pull Kara in on it to see if she can help and assist. So part of our relationship is we have to be in very close contact to know what's going on with families. So, and it needs to be a non-threatening thing, so parents are open and welcome to the assistance, because it's hard. It's really hard to come to someone and say, hey, look, I'm struggling. Can you help me? And so part of that is really making families feel comfortable. I'm sure you probably experienced that at Burton. They have to be able to trust you and know that it's going to stay within just us. So, and our families deal with some barriers that we may not be used to and that we don't even think of. So that's just something to be really aware of. That kind of cover it? Okay.
I brought in
Hi, everyone. Hi, I'm Kara Riddle, or I guess, hi. And Martha Box, she's also a community school coordinator, as we said before, at Burton, brought a DVD that really explains very well a community school that's been around for about 15 years. This all started in New York with the Children's Aid Society, and they're also a consultant for us, providing trainings and seminars. So I think it'd be good to show the DVD now, because it helps you get a better understanding and a better visual. And then we can check on the PowerPoint after that.
"15 years ago, the Children's Aid Society created an extraordinary partnership to improve the lives and education of the children in Washington Heights. Working with the Department of Education and building on our experience in operating community centers throughout Manhattan for the last 100 years, the Children's Aid Society created a bold new approach to schooling that met the needs of the whole child. These are called community schools.
Compared to a traditional school, a community school has extended hours, extended services, and extended relationships. That is, it brings the community into the school and it also serves the community.
It feels different from a regular public school. It feels like a place that's inviting and welcoming to a community. And I think that is a critical component.
We have a concept in our work that we call the Developmental Triangle. And it really starts with children at the center of the triangle, and we are keeping our eye on the needs of children all the time. One side is the core instructional program, which is what we hold schools responsible for. The second leg of the triangle is enrichment. It's extra learning opportunities. And then on the bottom of the triangle, we're bringing in a whole set of services that are responsive to the unmet needs of the children in that school. Things like medical services, dental services, mental health, and social services.
The first thing that is taken away from children are the basics: art, music, sports, enrichment programs, and Children's Aid has brought those back into our school. It's made my job where I feel that I am giving children the tools necessary to become lifelong learners, and also that drive that they want to come to school every day and that there is purpose.
Our ability to work closely with the principals and sort of align and integrate their educational focus with our child welfare and youth development approach is, I believe, when it's working at its best.
I think that also children want and need their support with their healthy growth and development, so that when we provide children with sound teeth to last them throughout their life, when we're providing them with good eyesight, when we're providing them with the kinds of medical and mental health benefits that we can here, that offers just a lifetime of more choices for children.
We see children, regardless of their immigration status, regardless of their medical insurance. We are here to service the children and their families.
The Go Kids program originated with the premise of preventing obesity in the neighborhoods of Washington Heights. In order for the program to work, we need to involve the parents. And the way we do that is when they have parent meetings over at the school, Go Kids is present.
Well, families in the community are extremely isolated. They're mostly immigrant families from Mexico or the Dominican Republic. This program provides tremendous community for the parents and the children. Because this isolation, they form friendships with other parents. They want to come to this school. So the school is basically a magnet for them within this community.
I came over here in 1993 looking for some support because I have to go to work and I didn't have a babysitter to take care of my child. But after that I realized that they have an adult program which I need to get some skill in computer, helping with my education.
Pregnant women enter the community schools at PS5 and PS8. So we're providing integrated and comprehensive services for families for 5 years before parents even enter kindergarten.
Children's Aid Society is good for kids, but it's good for parents too. This is a workshop that every day the school provides to the parents.
I was a parent, single parent with 2 children, going to school, trying to have a job at the same time. And as soon as CAS came into our school site, they took my children as their children.
I think the arts has a twofold value for young people. One is actually learning the art form, learning art skills. Another value is using art to teach. I think something that's really great about the cast in that performance is there are 8 members of the cast, and 2 of those cast members are actually special education students. And yet, getting up on stage and performing is an opportunity and a venue for them to focus.
All of these offerings in our community schools are designed to level the playing field for our poor children, to give them the same opportunities that more affluent children have. There is no better return on investment than uplifting a child from poverty with a good education.
The partnership with Children's Aid Society has made my job infinitely easier. To have a critical friend, a partner.
One person can't do this, even a few people, but you have to have the know-how, and Children's Aid has really made a commitment in the school, made a commitment to the families and to the children. And the best thing is to the children, because the children, when they come in here, they don't want to leave. And school every day is here from 7:15 in the morning, and the children are still here at 6 o'clock at night.
And it has been really difficult to make them leave at 6 o'clock, but they stay because they feel that they're wanted and that their voice is important, that what they're doing here is important.
I went from being somebody who didn't really care about anything to caring about everything. And Children's Aid made it possible because I started realizing that in my neighborhood we didn't have much. And once Children's Aid came to this neighborhood, it changed everything.
We have a lot of evidence that community schools are a better approach than a traditional model. And we have very powerful results about improvements in academic achievement, improvements in student and teacher attendance, dramatic increases in parent involvement, and improvements in school climate.
Our students, just by their success rate and the colleges that they attend and the graduation rate, it's definitely a model that should be copied.
What I learned with Children's Aid is something that I take strongly to my heart. And that's why I want to show to the kids, and hopefully they learn and feed off of me and pass it along. Because, you know, it's not about your name that's going to be remembered, it's the lessons.
We have several strategies that we use to help people learn about and adapt our model to their own needs and circumstances. We have seen great interest in the community school strategy from colleagues all over the country and really all over the world. In fact, we have had visitors from 40 different countries come to see our community schools in action in New York City.
The needs children have in, let's say, in the places where we work, we have a large immigrant population, which means that many of the children who come to elementary schools are behind in their language acquisition. Many of the children are not, let's say, accustomed to certain aspects of Dutch society. We provide them with early childhood programs, parental involvement programs, after-school programs. And what is also very important is that we notice that principals cannot do their job on their own. They need other professionals to make those changes happen.
Increasingly, our leaders all recognize that providing everything that children need under one roof, the school roof, makes sense. The Children's Aid Society is deeply committed to continuing its advocacy across this country and beyond until every school is a community school.
So seeing the video with the Children's Aid Society, it really gives a great picture. And that was all those things you saw was all in one building for one school, for one, their own school, their own set of families, their own students. And it's really incredible. I don't know about you, but my school didn't have a full health clinic when I grew up and did not have all of those extensive after school and other opportunities. So it's really amazing what impact that these additional services can make to a school. With a little bit of history with Children's Aid and in Grand Rapids, this movement of community schools has been around for a long time. But what Grand Rapids did in Kent County was develop a system of care, and we looked at all of our partner strengths. The biggest difference between Children's Aid in New York City and Kent School Services Network here is that Children's Aid is one beautiful package. They bring everything. They bring their own after school, their own clinic, their own counselors, their own social workers, everything. They're all Children's Aid employees. But in Grand Rapids, it's all about collaboration and really piecemealing all of our strengths of our community to all play together under one roof. So there's been challenges, but also many rewards. And then we created this delivery model of services where it's all one stop, like Carrie said, and provide this response of meeting local and neighborhood needs to our services. Each community school you see, even with our own county, are all very different, as they should be, because each school has their own needs. So I'm not going to go into too much with Children's Aid, but they are wonderful. They've been providing all of our technical assistance. I've been out to New York to visit one of those schools in action, and actually Carrie and Carrie go out tomorrow to visit their school in New York City. So they've been a great support for us. So what we take is a foundation of a core educational program, all the different in-house services right in our school, including health and human services, and with those pieces in place, we're ensuring that children are physically, emotionally, and socially prepared to learn. The video talked a little bit about the triangle, and so many schools have a lot of these pieces. They have the enrichment piece, whether it's with an after-school program or family programs. They have a core instructional program, and they may even have removing barriers to whatever their development is, whether it's they've never been to the eye doctor and they're in the 4th grade, or they have a toothache so they can't focus in class, or maybe other emotional issues or serious issues going on at home. But what a community school coordinator does is they come in and they bring all those pieces together. You'll see there's a little circle at each of the tip of the triangles. My school is an example. At Burton, we had a clinic in place. We had a DHS worker on site. We had an after-school program, but everyone was operating in a silo. No one was talking to each other. And we'll talk about this a little bit later in the presentation, but we come in, we kind of bridge everyone together so that it eliminates duplication of services, it gets everyone communicating, and in the end, ultimately strengthening what we already have and filling in those gaps where we see we need to fill in.
Okay, so what this all means is all of it is being brought to the school. As Martha said, there's a nurse or a health clinic, dependent upon the school. There's case managers from DHS, the community school coordinator, as well as other community resources as needed. And I started back in October, and Carrie explained to me, and just from other staff, that what they needed in their school at that moment was mental health services, because they were lacking social worker and a counselor. So my first task was to get family outreach center there in the school, providing mental health counseling to families and some of the individual students. Also looking at Pine Rest, getting someone in to do groups, treatment groups, as well as prevention groups. But each school is different, because actually I came from Alger Middle, which is also a community school, and I was while I was in graduate school, I was their health aide there, working with the school nurse, and when we got our community school coordinator, because I had been there before we had one, and then afterwards, she was bringing in people from Spectrum Health, like nurses from Spectrum Health, people wanting to teach about asthma, and we were thinking to ourselves, like, okay, what's up with our job? Like, job security, like, this seems like some competition here. Like, are they coming in to take over? But honestly, not one nurse can service 500 and 600 students. So, you know, when we were questioning it at first, like, what is going on? What's up with this change? After it got going, we welcomed it just because it was a help to the school, because it's just, there's so many students and not one school nurse can service all of them. So, as Martha said, it's very collaborative, lots of communication. Working together.
Yeah, please.
That's just kind of how I am. And you put the microphone back up here. So, you know, my experience last year was interesting. When I came in, we had a different school community coordinator. Did a wonderful job, but there was a lot of confusion about still what was going on in my building, who was responsible for what was this person doing, and people were feeling threatened by, and that's just the nature of human beings. You feel threatened when you feel like someone's taking your place. So when I found out that I actually had the administrative job, I was the head principal, over the summer I met with our other school community coordinator, because it was important for us to get rid of that barrier, because we were working on removing barriers for children and parents, and we had a barrier ourselves, and that just wasn't working. And then when Kara came on, you know, that was probably the first conversation. One of the first conversations I had with her was that, you know, we need to make sure that we're all on the same page. And I think we've done a pretty good job making sure that everybody in the building's aware of who's responsible for what and who's there to support each other, because ultimately that's what we're all supposed to do. So that was a huge learning curve throughout my entire building over the past year and a half. And it's been interesting to watch my staff go through that transition. So now it's to the point where I'm like, okay, no, you cannot bombard Kara. You cannot bombard Kurt. You know what I mean? I have to kind of like put a wall. I'm like, hold on a second, you know, because I don't want them to become overwhelmed. And, you know, it's good that teachers are excited that we have these other resources to help them, but yet they still need to know, you know, where there's a limit. So it's been really beneficial having Kara come on to be a part of our team, because I feel like, I can speak for myself, I feel like that barrier has been removed, where everybody just sees it's a team now, because we have a lot of children. We definitely do. So that's what I'm
going to hit it. Oh, this one? Oh, it's great. Thank you. Okay. So how community school works, and just to give another, and it's a lot to take in, but Kent School Services Network is really a movement. It's not, no one works for KSSN. There's no KSSN building. KSSN, Kent School Services Network, is what all of these schools are trying to achieve, is this community school ideal. And it takes a lot of partnership with schools, staff, like we were just talking about, with our families, neighborhoods, community agencies. This does not happen overnight, and it's really getting into people's minds that this is a new way of operating school from what we knew before. We're going to welcome in these services. We're going to see the benefits. Our building's going to be open longer. Our building's going to be open earlier. Our building's going to be open on Saturday. And why? Because we want to work for our families. These are what our families want. They want a gym day. They want a marketplace day, or whatever the event is that they want to plan. But it's all in the efforts of making this community school where it's a welcoming environment. People are coming in. They're at school because they want to be, not because their child's in trouble again. So it's really this whole concept. And we're working with people that have come right in and jumped right in and really embraced the idea. And we're also working with people that are like, not so fast. This isn't how we've done things before. This is a little scary to me. But the idea is that in the end they're going to see that the benefits for the whole building. And it brings the increased relevance of human services, like with Department of Human Services right on site, reduces duplication of services, and then maximizes our local strengths. So it's all good stuff. Some of the services that we provide, like I said, healthcare, counseling, hosting special events to connect parents with the schools, and there's one tonight that Carrie has to, and actually I'm going to go to too. We've called Date with Dads, or Dad's Night, and the students come in
have dinner, go to the classrooms, and it's just for dads or grandpa or uncle or whoever the significant male in a person's life is, because we're trying to get more male involvement, parental involvement, grandfather involvement, because that's lacking within our schools. We have a lot of mother or grandmother involvement, but trying to get dads more involved. We try to help to parents overcome language barriers. That's not necessarily something that I focus on at my school, because most of them are English speaking. Yeah, and working with the neighborhood and community businesses to expand services for families through sponsorships and partnerships. The church across the street, Messiah Missionary Baptist Church, often provides monetary incentives, like gift cards to the bookstores or gas cards or dinner cards, and we use those incentives for parents that show up for their child's parent-teacher conferences to get them in, and they're entered in a drawing. So that's helps us out as well. Okay. So would you like to share an yeah, sure.
So just to explain my school a little bit, we're actually preschool through 5. We just started preschool this year, and it's been excellent having our 4-year-olds join us. And we're really proud that we've only had one child on an excessive tardy or absence, and that's major, because a lot of our families really still feel culturally that kindergarten is more of a daycare option, where really kindergarten is now first grade, and it's just so pivotal to their foundation of the rest of their learning and the habits they're going to carry on through the rest of their education. So it's been a really great having preschool and then kinder through 5. We're a language center, which means our K through 3rd grade are bilingual classrooms as they're transitioning from Spanish to English. We're 85% Spanish-speaking Latino families, and then the rest is African American, and we have a small group of other. We're really not sure who those other kids are, but that's what our data shows us. And we are really, some of our services, to explain quickly, we have our DHS worker on site full-time. We have Cherry Street Health Center in our building, which is a full dental, medical, and mental health services 5 days a week, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and that serves our whole school family as well as the neighborhood. So it's great. A mother can drop her child off for school and then take her toddler in for his checkup, or he's sick, or whatever the issue is. If we're meeting on a child and discover, oh my gosh, he hasn't had a hearing test in 2 years, we can walk him right down to the clinic. It's done. We're not wasting all that time making appointments, hoping the parent doesn't miss the appointment because of a transportation barrier. It's right there, right on hand. I always say we're unfortunately unique that we're the only elementary school in Kent County with a full clinic, but with this movement of community schools, hopefully that importance of having a clinic on site where kids are missing less school because they're able to get better faster or get their initial health care addressed faster, to see the long-term benefit in that. We have a before-school program for working families that need to drop their kids off before they go to work. There's a safe place for kids to go before their school starts. And we also have an after-school program, which goes till 5:30, and that's also Monday through Friday. And then we have our whole mentoring center where we partnership with Kids Hope USA, which is a national mentoring center, and we have to date about 105 mentors that come in each week to meet with one child for an hour. So that's been a great addition to our school. But some of our just services since we've been there with to coordinate all these services, we've had one instance with a mentor where they were meeting just the regular time, and they're reading a story about when it rains, and the little girl mentioned to her mentor, I just hate it. I hate it when it rains. And so the mentor is just talking to her about that a little bit more, and she found out that whenever it rains, her bed got all wet because she had a leaky roof. So the mentor came to our DHS worker and our principal, and all of us were able to coordinate together. By the end of the week, they had services in their building or in their home to fix the roof, and that was, the issue was fixed. Had that mentor not had that conversation with the little girl and then known what to do with that information, she would to this day have a leaky roof. So that just having an extra set of eyes and ears, and then taking a step further to know where to go with this information. We've had several counseling referrals from situations like this. Like this comment this little child said was a little off. Can we look into it? And we can look into it and work with the families. There's another story. I was doing a program with a family, and we were talking about having news cameras come in, and like they were just taking pictures of our new building. And so I just was simulating taking a child and a mother into the clinic and having them go to the dental chair and sit down and pretend they're getting an exam. And after we were doing our simulation, the hygienist mentioned, he really could use a cleaning. So the mother said, okay. And then I went and told the teacher that he won't be coming back to class for another hour, and he went and had a full cleaning right then and there. So it's just, there's always eyes and ears. It's just a really welcoming environment, and it's so nice to have everything right there on hand.
Okay, so we're in the third year of a 3-year pilot program, and so we're in 3 districts, Comstock Park Schools, Godfrey Lee, and then 7 schools in the Grand Rapids Public School System. And we measure success by increased student support, increased support of student and families, increased student achievement, and improved attendance and fewer students moving. Also, less teaching time spent managing social or health issues, increased access to and for referrals for services, increased parent involvement, increased community quality of life, and increased staff understanding of school district families and their needs. And we track things monthly, and they're being compared to before we were there and after.
Which leads to our evaluation piece. We're heavily evaluated, but it's important because you're going to know what we're doing if it's working. And we work with an agency out of Lansing called Public Policy Associates, and they come in, they meet with the teachers, they meet with the principal, they meet with the parents, they meet with us constantly through this whole 3 years of our pilot. And they're doing all of this research, and they're showing that this movement of community schools is working. It is decreasing absenteeism, and it is increasing health services and mental health services for families. There's a lot of work to be done. I mean, we're not quite like the schools we saw in the video, but we've come a long way, and we know there's a lot to still go. So yeah, that's pretty much it on evaluation. Let me talk a little bit about this. So just to sort of wrap up, we're in all 9 schools. We have we do not have Spectrum nurses because we have the Cherry Street Clinic, but the other 8 sites have Spectrum nurses in the building to assist with school nurses that may already be in the building. Case managers from DHS are on site in all 9 buildings, and then the leadership teams have started. And the community school leadership team is, I was explaining a little earlier about the Developmental Triangle, and it brings in teachers, the principal, people that are in your building, whether it's a mentoring program, an after-school program, a nurse or a medical representative, a parent maybe. Every team looks a little different. Maybe your school psychologist or a social worker. And you get together once a month or twice a month, and you just have your meeting to talk, to see how to check in with each other. How are programs going? What challenges are you facing? What successes have you had? And it just gets people together to really see the big picture of it, because it's so easy to just kind of get focused on your project or your program and kind of forget about everyone else. So it really kind of makes you come up for air and realize, wow, look at all these great things going on in our building. And then also to look at, wow, we could really do this a little bit better, or we could bring in this, and this might help a lot. So it's just great to be part of this movement of community schools.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
There's a ton of information we just threw at you. Yeah. You can even ask questions about, our school, like how does it work with parents, those types of things. What kind of things are you interested
And honestly, there are people jumping to get into these schools. Like, to be a community school coordinator, you have to be super organized. I have people calling every day, and it's almost like we don't have enough space. We have so many people wanting to get into the school and do things, to teach about lead, to teach about, et cetera. No, I forget.
Like, does it cost money to go there? Like, how do you get all of these, like, you know what I mean?
Get money.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
still learning.
A lot of it is so much as a lot of collaboration. I mean, Grand Rapids is great in Kent County that we have so many resources. We're just tapping into those resources and say, hey, can you come to the school? We have, example with Arbor Circle and Family Outreach Center. Those are two mental health agencies in Grand Rapids. We've partnered with them so their counselors come to our building, because that decreases missed appointments because of transportation issues or whatever other issue came up in the child's life, where the counselor can come right to school, get them out of class for an hour or whatever it takes, have their session right there in a private room, and then the child can go back to class, and it's just a lot better. So the service is taking place, working with the different after school program, that's all separate from the school. So we're just collaborating to bring those services that exist and just networking on how to bring them into the building under the roof. Okay. At our clinic, everything's on a sliding scale fee. So since if they are a family at the school or live in the neighborhood, they'll qualify. So that's kind of taken care of. And unless if they're on Medicaid or some sort of insurance, then they'll look into that too. But it's also and if there's no insurance, there's special grants through the clinic.
Right. Like I know in my building in particular, we don't have a clinic. I have on the full time. What do I want to say? She's a nurse's aide. Sorry, I was trying to think of the word. Lost my brain. And then we have a part-time nurse that comes in. So, like I was having a conversation with her nurse the other day, and she was explaining to me that a child and her mother didn't have health insurance. So there are different avenues. They know how to explore and how to walk that parent through it, because that can be intimidating for parents sometimes. And so now they've secured it and they have insurance, so they can get health care, those kinds of things. So, but Grand Rapids Public, we're public schools. I mean, just like any other public school that exists. I mean, there's 18 other elementary schools who, don't have KSSN in their buildings. Do they all want to be KSSN sites? You better believe they do. They're very jealous of us. So it's kind of funny, we'll be at meetings and they'll say, well, we need to see KSSN principals, and they all kind of glare at us. Because, it is a great assistance to us to be able to have someone that we can go to and be like, okay, I need your help here. I'm not sure what to do when we all put our brains together and try to help here through the issue.
So it's a pretty big investment. Like if you're out here at the grocery store, like you're still on the job, right?
My job never ends. My job is 24 hours, a day. I mean, there are things that come up, but that's a commitment that I've made as a professional. Like taking up my job. So.
And really just the nature of being in a building, a school building. I mean, I always run into families, and it's just kind of, it's a good thing and a bad thing, but it's part of the nature of the job.
It is, and you get used to it. I mean, even as a teacher, are most of you going to school to be a teacher? How many of you are going to be a teacher? Okay, your job never ends. That's the truth of it. When I think back, I taught for 10 years before I got into administration. And my job never ended, you know what I mean? I was still always calling parents at night, you know what I mean? I was still always working on plans. What can I do that's neat for my kids? You're out shopping at the mall, and you're thinking of something that's fun for your kids to do to connect to curriculum. Because the more relevant it can be, and the more kids can relate to you, the better educated you're going to become. And parents want to feel secure with you. They want to feel like, okay, you know what, this person has an invested interest in my child. When I look at my own building, I have 84 students. Every parent that walks through my door knows that I have an invested interest, and I'm going to do what I think is the very best for their child. And that's a lot. That's a lot of kids. It's a lot of families. So, I mean, as educators, when you're a teacher, your world's a little bit smaller, because you'll have 28 to 30 kids in your classrooms. I'll be realistic with you. I had a 6th grade sitting at 34 this year for a while. You're going to have those large numbers, but the more time you invest in kids, the easier it's going to be for you, and the easier it's going to be for them to learn. So, it might help.
Oh, it's a great question. One of our sites is a year-round school. There's a handful of schools in 5?
There's 5 schools that are alternative calendars.
Yeah, alternative calendars. And I think it's so great. I would love for Burton to become one. But it's the same amount of time off, but it's spread out over the year. So you might have like a 2-week spring break, but you come back to school in August 1st.
I actually worked at a year-round school for 3 years. I taught at a year-round school.
Ooh.
So, loved it. It was awesome. Kids got their break, they came back to school, they were ready to go.
And the teachers got their break too.
Just when they needed that break again, they got their break and they came back to school. But the biggest piece about year-round is that when they do have those frequent breaks throughout the year, there's something that goes on called intercession. This is kind of off topic.
That's fine.
But called intercession, and that's for struggling kids, and then there's a portion of enrichment kids that can come back, and they get that assistance that they need. So they go to school half day during the time. And that's above and beyond the normal instruction. So, and that's sometimes what kids need. They need to be in a small setting so you can be more directive with your instruction.
And especially, and Burton is definitely one, and there's several other schools in the area that have such a high, immigration population that so much is lost over the summer, and especially with language. So to be able to have more consistency throughout the year, it's just going to be better in the long run. But for schools that are on a traditional calendar, we have a LOOP program. LOOP is the name of the after-school program in Grand Rapids, and it's 6 to 8 weeks in the summertime. It's free. They have lunch, snack, activities, field trips. It's noon to 5 every day, or 11 to 5. But so many families, there's always a waiting list. So many families take advantage of that. And then our clinic is open. Our clinic's open all summer, all the breaks. So they have their own entrance.
And a variety of schools do different types of things. Like we have something called Kids Games in our building. It's in the evenings for like 2 weeks during the summer, and it's like from 5 to 8. And they do really cool things with kids. It was really funny the day I came this past summer. I was just popping into the building, and there were horses. I was like, okay, when's the last time you saw horses on Henry Street? I mean, that just doesn't happen. You know what I mean? And it was really funny to see the kids in the neighborhood. They thought it was the coolest thing ever. But there are a lot of really individualized activities, like they can choose to go to art class, karate. I mean, there's just a variety of different things to bring in opportunities for kids. And our LOOP program, which is our after-school program / summer program also for students, they do a variety of different activities with students. So they have some diversity in their choices. So it's not doing the same thing all the time. And it's truly to enrich children, to expose them to some things that they probably wouldn't be exposed to.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say if I wanted to get involved with KFSN, was that like a volunteer thing that you guys do, or is it something that I have to turn in for?
That's a good question.
That's a twofold question.
Yeah.
I think there are some opportunities, which you guys probably could speak better to, for DA Blodgett. But if you wanted to come and volunteer, I know both of you coordinate volunteer efforts, tutoring for students, those kinds of things. So we do a couple different things in our building. We have academic tutoring. We have something called Girl Talk.
Big Brothers, Big Sisters, school-based, and then through DA Blodgett. So.
It'd really be a matter, I always, like in a nutshell, community school coordinators deal with everything in the building that's pretty much not academic. So the teachers can put their teaching hat on, and the principal can run his or her building and not worry about all the social and emotional issues going on with everything, which in the past, they'd be the ones finding the new eyeglasses, or they'd be the ones making the mental health referral. Now we can step in and coordinate with all these services that exist in Kent County and make it work for them, take that off their plate. So when volunteers come in, we just more or less meet with them and see where is your passion? Do you want to work with kids one-on-one? Do you want to run a group? Do you want to come and help out at a parent night and serve chili? I mean, really, it's up to you, and there's so many experiences, and Some people we have volunteer like long term, and everyone needs to do a GRPS background check. I mean, that's standard for everyone, paid or unpaid staff. And yeah, so sky's the limit.
And I think where you guys are, I'm assuming you're at like maybe the beginning, middle of your college career in education. Am I right? Pretty much, sort of, somewhat. Some of you are probably a little bit more advanced than others.
The whole spectrum.
I get a feel for where you guys are without being able to have conversations with you. But anytime you're going to go into the field of education, the more experience you have, the more exposure you have, the better off you're going to be. Because those are the kind of questions that are going to be asked of you, when you interview. When I sit down and I interview a teacher, I mean, I ask some pretty tough questions. In an instant, I know whether you have it or not by the way you answer questions. So, in your exposure to kids, you can't have something happen with a kid and be completely freaked out because you need to be able to handle it at that moment. Freak out later, deal with it now. That's my whole thing with my staff. That's what I tell them. Because there are some things that happen that you're like, I cannot believe that just happened to me. I do it all the time, and then I freak out later. But you have to be realistic about it, and you have to be able to deal with things up front before it. So experience is the best way to do that. It's our reality. We live it every single day. So, it happens.
So we've said all these great things about, but we do have challenges, and we still have a lot to learn. But in closing, educating the school and the surrounding community on this whole concept has taken a lot of legwork, and getting people to think differently about things, that's been a challenge. Just getting buy-in from school staff, like we were talking earlier, who's this new person, and are they taking our funding, and all these questions pop up. But that's when it comes back to relationships is so important. Just collaborating with all of these agencies and making this network strong. These are our partners. Someone asked about our community partners, and it's pretty extensive. We've got a lot of big heavy hitters at the table, but that's what's really making the impact. And then our operating partners. I don't know if any of those are familiar to you. But we couldn't do this work without their support and their leadership. And then our advisory partners, and then people asked about funding. So we have a lot of grants right now. We have different foundations, United Way, and Grand Rapids Community Foundation is a big one. And our funding has been, we've been told, set for year 4, 5, and 6. And the idea is that this is becoming sustainable so we can move into other buildings. We're kind of proving ourselves right now that this is working, and we'll move into more than just the 9 buildings that we're in, and into more middle schools and high schools.
So again, first and last, we're all about kids. Thank you so much for coming. And I've got pencils and pads and a brochure for everyone.